Hey guys, Clay Johnson from Coley Sales here. Today I'm going to show you how to tune a Melges 15 mast. I've already rigged my mast, and if you need any help rigging that, we have a separate video about how to put it all together and how to set the spreader widths. Now I'm going to put it into the boat. I personally don't like to stand in the boat if I don't have to. One tip that could help me is I've already removed the pins and ringdings and I've put them in the locations on the boat. That's going to make it a lot easier when I'm stepping the mast. I'm just going to grab it and I'm going to lift it straight up and I'm going to carry it over. And I'm going to put it into the mast step like that. I know it might appear as if I'm incredibly strong, but I'm not that strong. Most people can do this by themselves or with the help of someone else. Richard over here is now going to attach each side stay. So we've attached both the side stays. I like putting the ringding on the inside just to keep it clean from the spinnaker sheets and any of the spinnakers. I'll also tape over that just to make sure that it doesn't come out. The next step is to go to the front of the boat where I've attached the boat breaker. And this top clip is going to attach to this little ball that's on the forestay. Then you're going to pull the boat breaker on until we're able to put on the forestay. Once you get your forestay on, you can then take off your boat breaker. You don't need it anymore. One tip for my forestay, I like to put my ringding on starboard. The spinnaker is going to come out on port and the tack line is going to ride out on port. So it's just one fewer thing for it to get snagged up on. You're going to measure your tension on the Melges 15 with a loose tension gauge. I really like the PT1 tension gauge as I find it to be pretty accurate. But you're going to do that on the forestay, which is unlike other boats where you do that on the side stay. So this will just clip on here and you can measure your tension. Before I do that, and this is the most important part of the video, it's really important to make sure that your mast is square and even and not tilted one way or the other. There are side stays. They're supposed to be equal length. There's human error in everything we do, and these aren't necessarily perfectly even. So what I do the first time I put my mast up is I'm going to count out the number of threads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, or more or less. And I'm going to go to the opposite side, and I'm going to count the same number. I'm going to also make sure that this turnbuckle is even in here. I don't want to have 10 threads showing on the top and 1 thread showing on the bottom. I want it to be pretty centrally located. I make sure those are even. Now, I see people take calipers out and measure the distance between here. That's a good reference point, but it's not necessarily the best way to do it. What I do is I'm going to take a tape measure where I've tied a piece of string to the end of it, and I'm going to tie it to my main halyard. Then I'm going to run the main halyard to the top of the mast. The reason I go to the top of the mast is because I think the tape is going to stretch less than any rope that goes to the top of the mast. So this is all the way to the top, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this tape down and I'm going to measure to the side of the boat. It doesn't matter what this number is. Everyone's top, the knot they tie might be different. The little extender line between the tape measure and the halyard might be different. So it'd be pointless for me to tell you it should be this number. What we're trying to do is we're trying to compare this number here to the number on the other side of the boat to make sure that the mast is even. I have about 237 1/4, and I have 237 1/4, spot on. It's also really important that you're honest with yourself about how hard you're pulling. You can manipulate this a little bit if you wanted to. I could really pull it down and get to 237, or I can hold it pretty slack and get to 237 1/2. So I try and be honest with myself and have about the same amount of tension side to side. Now that I know that my mast is centered, I'm going to take down the tape measure. You don't need that anymore. After I've ensured that my mast is perfectly square, I can start by measuring the tension off of my forestay. I put the loose gauge on. In this case, my number is about 22 1/2. And that makes sense because the last time I sailed this boat was a very breezy day. That's towards the upper end of my limit. I would say generally speaking, the range is about 16 on the forestay tension when it's pretty light, and it goes up to about 23 when it's really windy and wavy. So 16, 18 in that light spot, maybe 20 is a pretty good medium air setting, and then 21, 22, 23 as it gets windier. I want to back this down because it's a light air day. So in order to do the adjustments, I'm going to come over to each side stay, and I'm going to use this side stay adjusting tool. The wrench goes in and holds the stay in place, and this tool goes in and is used to turn it. I actually Sharpie the plus sign with an arrow so that I know which way is tighter and which way is looser. And it's easy to remember, but in the heat of the moment, you're trying to do this right before the race starts. If you have something to look at, it's just going to give you some confidence that you're doing it correctly. So I'm going to loosen it. I'm going to go about 3 turns. 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. Whatever I do to this side, I'm going to do to the opposite side too, to make sure that my mast maintains its symmetry. So I just loosened it up. My mast is still even. I'm going to come up here. I actually think it's important to take it off, let the spring reload, and then pull it back on and assess. I'm down to about 19.5, which makes sense because I think about 1 turn on each side is about 1 number here. So I'm going to go 1 more number and check it again. I've done 1 more adjustment, and now I'm at 17. These light air conditions, I think that's a pretty good number to start with. I wanted to talk about scar pins a little bit. We've tuned everything. This turnbuckle could self-adjust while you're sailing, so it's important to lock it in place. I use these scar pins, which are pins with these Velcro. They go right through the hole at the bottom of each turnbuckle here, and Velcro like that. I use one on the top, and I use one on the bottom. If it doesn't line up for whatever reason, you can take your hand and do a micro adjustment to get it so that these scar pins will line up. I personally really like the scar pins because I find them to be clean and neat, and they don't protrude from the boat. I know that there are some of these stay adjusters that are a little wider and allow you to adjust it with just a turn of the hand. I think in principle that's cool, except I've seen people get their spinnaker caught on it, or their spin sheet caught on it, or the crew during a tack or jibe or maneuver will hike out and lean out and hit it and bruise their side. So for those reasons, I kind of think the scar pins are the cleaner, easier, cheaper way of handling this issue. And there you have it. That's how you tune a Melges 15 mast.